Bitcoin has enjoyed this incredible run, Matt. As we look ahead now to 2025, 12 months from now, Matt, it's December 2025. We're talking here. Bitcoin is where, Matt? What do you forecast?
It's great to be here. We're going to have the same conversation that Bitcoin has had an incredible run. We expect Bitcoin to be up above $200,000 by this time next year. There are just three irrepressible sources of demand driving the market. You have ETFs that are vacuuming up Bitcoin. You have public companies like MicroStrategy vacuuming up Bitcoin. And now we're talking about governments vacuuming up Bitcoin. At the end of the day, it comes down to supply and demand. There's too much demand, not enough supply. And so I think the price goes higher in 2025.
I mean, Matt, rarely, though, do you see demand for an asset so sustained over this kind of a time period, right? Does it need new catalysts, or, is this effectively just a momentum trade with nothing really to stop it?
Well, I think the real story is people just wake up to Bitcoin at different paces. We saw retail investors get there first. We've seen companies and financial advisors get there. We're starting to see institutions get there. And once they realize that Bitcoin's not going away, that it belongs in a portfolio, they have to get off zero, get to 1%. Blackrock now says 2%. So it's just this cascading series of educational breakthroughs that brings new people into the market. Look, Bitcoin is now a global macro asset. It's a few $1 trillion. Pretty much every investor should have some, and we still have a large number of investors to go. That's why I think this is maybe a momentum trade, maybe it's a one-off introduction, but we're still early in that journey. We have many quarters to go.
In terms of potential catalysts, Matt, I got to ask you about Trump and his support for this idea of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, Matt. What do you make of that? What do you think the odds are that actually happens? If it did happen, what would it mean for the price?
Yeah, I'll answer that last one first. If we do get a Bitcoin strategic reserve where the government is buying Bitcoin, and there's a bill from Senator Lummis that had the government buy 1 million Bitcoin, $200,000 Bitcoin is going to be looking quaint. You're going to be looking at $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 Bitcoin. It's just too big a story because governments all around the world would have to do it. When this initial idea was floated, I was somewhat skeptical of it, but over the months, it hasn't gone away. In fact, we continue to see leaders in the Trump administration suggest that they're open to it. I still think, maybe it's less than a 50% chance, but it's not zero. And again, if it happens, or if we start to see it happening in other countries, you're going to see, a rip up in Bitcoin that will make 2024 look pretty docile in comparison.
And one of the other predictions that you have for the coming year is that Coinbase is going to be a big beneficiary here. So big a beneficiary, then it's going to surpass Schwab in terms of brokerage size. Talk us through how you get from here to there.
Yeah, right now it's about half the size of Charles Schwab, and we think it could reach that and more. Coinbase is this really unique opportunity because there was so much regulatory suppression over the past few years. Coinbase hasn't had major competitors bubbling up to challenge it. It's sort of had a degree of regulatory capture, if you can believe it. And as a result, it's been able to sustain its high margins in brokerages and then layer on things like stable coins, like its layer 2 network base. It's executing extremely well. It has a limited competitive environment. And it's in an industry that's growing 100% year over year. When you add those three things together, you'll see this vault up the spectrum. It'll also help if it gets into the S&P 500 and you see institutions buying it broadly. But I think it's a really unique situation driven by the fact that there was so much regulatory uncertainty. It cleared the competitive path, and now it's going to reap those rewards and build really, maybe an unassailable position leading this industry in the U.S.
And Matt, another theme we're talking about heading into next year is whether that IPO window, Matt, swings open. I'm curious whether you think you're going to see more crypto names next year, Tesla's public markets, and if so, Matt, any names on your radar?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is a story of regulatory suppression. You can imagine the negative regulatory environment sort of pushing the lid down on crypto for the past few years. And now that's being released. The lid's going to come off. Where you think we'll see multiple firms come to market. Firms like Kraken, which is a Coinbase competitor, firms like Anchorage, which is a leading custodian, Chainalysis, which is a digital data firm. There may be a dozen high-quality companies that are big enough to go public. They're due to go public, and I think they will go public, and that will just further normalize this industry. Every American will own crypto in their brokerage account through these companies. We'll see Wall Street coverage. It's going to be a very positive theme, and I think you're maybe already starting to see that. You're starting to see companies uplist into markets. I think the IPO window explodes in 2025.
Gosh, Matt, all of your predictions are positive ones. I mean, listen, I got to ask you, what could go wrong? Because the way you're describing it, like, is perfect, right, for crypto investors across the board. Are there any risks here?
This has been what's been keeping me up at night, re-underwriting my bullish thesis. Of course, there are risks. The biggest risk is that politicians don't deliver on their promises. We don't get regulatory clarity as fast as we think. We don't get a high-quality stablecoin bill, or the industry, the traditional finance industry, interferes with those bills, so they're not really pro-crypto and sort of pro-economic freedom. Regulation and politics are supposed to be a big driver of crypto in 2025. And if they deliver on their promises, I think it's an extraordinary bull market. But, the proof will be in the pudding. We haven't seen these bills. We haven't seen the strategic reserve. So that's the biggest risk is politicians not delivering.
Matt, always great to see you and to have you on the show. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays to y'all too.